The American Academy of Pediatrics, they say you should be breastfeeding your child for 2 years if you can. 2 years. And
wait, 2?
It felt like an anvil dropped in my stomach.
Like you said, it's that headspace shift. You might not even know what you're feeling, but it is just like immediately different.
So like in the cartoons from way back in the day, and you'd have this like cartoon animal or like a coyote running around and they drop an anvil off a cliff. That's literally what it felt like was happening, was inside my stomach. Really, we should all be embracing scientific discoveries and different ways that we can help be the best versions of ourselves. And in turn, we'll be better partners, we'll be better mothers, we'll just be able to show up for ourselves. And so I highly recommend it. I mean, get the help you need.
Talk to me about motherhood penalty as it pertains to the workforce.
Oh my goodness.
What is it? I don't know how we fix it. All right, guys, welcome back to the OnlyMoms podcast. I am so excited to have Julia Kim on our podcast today. She is the founder and CEO of Sanu, the first physician-developed postnatal retreat in the U.S. Inspired by her struggles with dysphoric milk ejection. It's ejection, right?
It's ejection.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I was really struggling to read that. And I did tell Julia, you guys, earlier that my daughter keeps waking up as if she has bills to pay. And so maybe I'm not caffeinated enough for this bio yet. But we are going to go over what that is in our conversation. But yes, you also struggled with postpartum anxiety, which is something that we have yet to cover on our podcast. But before Sanu, Julia served as chief of staff for State Senator Barbara Favola, where she helped pass key healthcare and social service bills. Her career includes roles in business development, international trade, and political strategy, including co-chairing Korean Americans for Biden. Julia holds an MBA from Georgetown and lives in Virginia and North Carolina with her family. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. I had looked into some postpartum retreats. All of the ones that I were looking at were in New York. It just made more sense for our family if it was something we were going to consider. But I mean, to have someone that has built one from the ground up, this is really exciting for me, and especially our listeners. At home, I've had a lot of questions on postpartum care in general, and so I think we're gonna have a great conversation. But first, I want to start. So you're back and forth between. Where do you live in North Carolina when you're
Charlotte?
You are in Charlotte.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am also in Charlotte, which means that we can try Mom Juice in person together. I know. I hate that we weren't able to make this happen in studio then.
Oh my gosh. So I saw that as an option and I was like, no way. And then I was like, let's just do virtual.
Yeah. Well, we needed to knock it out anyways. We had been fiending for the conversation and we had some struggles with our schedule. But now that I know it was Charlotte, I'm like, why did my team not note that? That's like a flag on the play. Like, bring her here. Plus, Charlotte is my favorite studio. I hope my studios aren't all listening to this, but Charlotte is truly like the aesthetic. It's so girly and beautiful. They've got a great team here. Okay, so let's dive in. I want to talk first about dysphoric milk ejaculation reflux. And I really want to educate my users. It's something that you experienced. I heard about it only because I had a night nurse. Otherwise, I would not have known what it was. I did not experience it. So I really want to learn from you and hear about your experience there.
Yeah. So for short, we call it DEMER. And, when I first had it, and by the way, I had it with both kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 14-month-old. I had it with both kids. And the first time I experienced it, I had no idea what it was. I was like, I really don't feel good. And the way that it felt for me was like, all of a sudden, you're breastfeeding or pumping, and it doesn't just happen when you're breastfeeding with like the baby on your boob. But it felt like an anvil dropped in my stomach. So, like in the cartoons from way back in the day, and you'd have this like cartoon animal or like a coyote running around and they drop an anvil off the cliff. That's literally what it felt like was happening, was inside of my stomach. Some huge weight was just dropping. So I'd feel it physically and mentally. And then you just feel kind of sad and out of sorts and just like really not good. I felt it from my throat all the way down to the bottom of my stomach. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this, I guess this is just what it is, or, something that happens.
Right, because we don't know. We really have no idea. You're like, oh yeah, my first time. This is just how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, terrible.
So you felt mostly sadness.
It was, the surprising thing was the physical sensation of it. And more so than sadness, it was just being really turned off. And it was kind of like a headspace shift from, okay, I'm breastfeeding, my child needs food, or, I'm producing milk, to all of a sudden just this crazy head shift.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain, but what I can say is that it is just a bad feeling. There's nothing positive about it. There's no framing that you can do, or, there's no positive light at the end of the tunnel. It was just bad.
So for everyone that's listening, when your milk drops, something triggers with your hormones, and there are quite a few of women that experience DMER, and you may not feel sadness. Sometimes it's anger. Like you said, it's that headspace shift. You might not even know what you're feeling, but it is just like immediately different, from what I've heard. And as Julia mentioned, there's not much you can do to get around it. I think awareness is the biggest tool here, just because that it'll be over when you're done, hopefully. Or how do you get your headspace back after you're done feeding or pumping, right? Did you have some kind of system?
Also, for my first child, I thought that was the norm. And so I kind of pushed through it, not realizing, hey, this is not normal. So many of my friends would say, oh, I have this really amazing feeling. I'm feeding my child. I'm bonding with my child because there's a lot of skin to skin going on. And so I made it for my first son about 10 months, and, I wasn't producing enough milk. So I was simultaneously power pumping all the time with the DMER and also supplementing with formula. And I just kind of pushed through it, and come to find out, there are some coping techniques, which, by the way, aren't great. I feel like there's not enough study done around what can we do to really address these issues that happen with DMER. But it's like, soak your feet in warm water, surround yourself with kind words. So it's kind of like, okay, let's pull you out of that headspace. But there's nothing really concrete that you can do to relieve yourself of the symptoms of DMER.
Yeah. One thing that I did, because I had a heavy supply, and so that's why my night nurse educated me on DMER, because she was worried. She's like, I just think we need to know all the things here. And so I wasn't sure, does it kick in immediately or whatnot? So what I would do when I was pumping is I would watch comedians. And this is totally unsolicited advice from someone that has not experienced it. But then at least you're laughing a little. And I feel like it kind of took me away from the fact that mine was just more, it was such a chore to be pumping and working. Because similar to you, I went back to work very early.
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of Andy Cohen. So I think with my second, I was on Audible a lot. And so I was listening to the books that he had written. So reality TV. I think there was a really popular soccer show. Now I forget what it is. But very positive.
Yeah, right. Whatever kind of just it's, and you're like, man, I really hate watching this positivity right now. But at the end, it does help you get through it. You talk a lot about clear communication and how that's so important to relationships. What did the conversation with your husband sound like when you were experiencing DMER? Because a lot of times I feel, especially postpartum, even if you're not experiencing it, we're all over the place. And my husband's like, oh God, okay, now we're angry. Let's figure this out. So what was that? How did your partner support you, and how did you talk about it?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that my partner, my husband, he has two older sisters. And so he was kind of trained from a very young age to be very copacetic when it comes to anything that is health related, emotional, physical, mental, when it comes to women. And so he was super understanding, despite the fact that he had no idea what this was. And he was busy too. He was busy just trying to be the best partner he could. And, I was tied to a pump. And so he was doing a lot of the childcare during my first. With my second, he was the one who convinced me very, very early on, saying, okay, this is the Deemer is back. Plus, you don't seem like, you just don't seem right. I was crying a lot. It was not good. And so he was like, let's just switch to all formula. He was like, don't do this to yourself. Don't try to, don't try to put yourself through the ringer just to get drops of breast milk. Let's just go to formula. And I will tell you that that was one of the best decisions I ever made with my second, was to just go all in on the formula.
We need to say this louder and prouder. Ladies, the best decision that she made was to go all formula and stop stressing herself about her breast milk. And we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah. I mean, the AAP says, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they say you should be breastfeeding your child for 2 years if you can. 2 years. And
wait, 2?
So they recently readjusted their recommendation to say, if you can do it, you should go for 2 years. And so we're getting all these messages saying that breast milk is best, when really, fed is best. Mental health is very important. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A happy mom is best, to be honest.
Absolutely.
So one thing you mentioned was power pumping. And I think that, for the women that are listening that are struggling to produce, can you tell them what power pumping is?
Yes. And it will look slightly different based on the type of pump you have and the amount of time you have, and, whether you're trying to increase your output or you're just not getting anything at all. So it's basically you spending an inordinate amount of time pumping on a pretty high level. And so I'm talking about like 30 minutes or more on each boob. And then you're reducing the letdown, but spending a lot of time on the really high setting of your pump. And so you're basically stimulating a very hungry child. And so hopefully your body responds by making the milk that you need, or at least producing more than you're currently producing. It's not just a one-time thing. Like, you need to be consistently power pumping.
Yeah, I had to power pump to get my supply back after one of my travels. I just think I was severely dehydrated and my supply dropped. And also, too, not having the baby with me, right? My body was like, oh, pump's not as strong. I don't need as much milk. But it took about a week of consistent, constant pumping and feeding to get my supply back. So it definitely is, consistency is key. And it doesn't always work. And so I feel like, would you say, how long would you give it? And if you're like, this isn't working, I'm going to cut myself some slack.
With the power pumping, gosh, it's hard to say because it's just so time consuming, but I would say give it a week and you should see something. There should be a change. And, if you have insurance, seek out a lactation consultant. They are a godsend.
Yes.
You're most likely going to be covered for around 6 sessions with a lactation consultant. The hardest part is finding one who you really vibe with. So, heck, reach out to us. If you're in the DC area or the Charlotte area, reach out to us and, I can give you a couple of recommendations. And so many lactation consultants will now work with you virtually. And so if you don't have one in your area, if you don't have one in your area, I can recommend some really good ones. Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure to link a place specifically for our listeners to reach out to you guys on that topic, because I think that is so key. You know, I didn't even, in this conversation, I didn't even think about that. It just naturally came with my pediatrician. They have a lactation consultant there, and she's there every day, and they just booked me with her. Like, it wasn't an option. I just thought it was part of the process. And so you do make a great point there. She's so helpful, right? Even if you're not struggling with milk production, just how much your baby should be eating, right? They will weigh the baby, have you feed, reweigh the baby. I mean, it breaks it all down. And so I think that that's great advice. So you didn't feel any of those anger emotions. You didn't go through any of the rage.
I didn't have the rage, but I had really terrible sadness, especially with my second. I mean, in conjunction with the Deemer, I also had pretty severe postpartum anxiety and depression. And I think some of it may have just been because I was in the throes of starting this postnatal retreat, and you're trying to get a business started. I mean, I had the baby on a Thursday, and I was back at my desk on Monday, and I was pitching on Tuesday. It was just so stressful. Yeah.
Okay, I know you don't have your wine yet, but I'm going to cheers to you because you're a beast. I don't think anyone understands. I mean, obviously our listeners are all moms, so they get it, how hard that would have been. Not just physically. Like, no wonder, you know?
Oh my gosh, I'm like, where's that wine?
I know, right? Look, we're going to get the wine. When you're in Charlotte, we're meeting up. Okay, so did you medicate? Did you go to a hormone specialist? Like, what did you do to manage the anxiety?
So I didn't even realize what that was. Again, it's like,
yeah,
you know, I know all about postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. I can tell you all the statistics about it, but when it happens to you, sometimes you don't even realize that that's what it is. And so I was up in the middle of the night taking care of my newborn, my infant, and I was scrolling and I came across an ad for like online therapy. And so I clicked on it and I was just taking their short little quiz. And at the end, it said, you've got some severe postpartum anxiety and depression. And so would you like to make an appointment? And so I did. And so it took literally a day and a half from, you know, the time I made the appointment to when I was seen virtually by a psychologist. And we talked. And then at the time, the medication that was recently released treating postpartum depression wasn't around. And so I actually got on medication that treated just anxiety in general. And I will tell you that it helped tremendously.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Because a lot of moms, you know, we carry so much guilt postpartum, not that we don't later. But I think in those beginning stages, you're like, oh my God, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing that. My milk supply, is the baby on a schedule. Everyone else's baby's on a schedule. Now I need medication, right? And it is there to take off that edge to really help you. And I encourage it all the time. And to just go talk to someone, to get checked out, to see, because, right, you didn't know. If it wasn't for your doom scrolling late at night because you had to be up with the baby, you would have suffered through that.
Yeah.
Welcome to season 2 of OnlyMoms. And you know I can't kick things off without a little treat from my favorites. So, if you're new around here, let me fill you in. 4 years ago, with my amazing business partner, Kristen Taylor, I co-founded Mom Juice. We're all about keeping the bullshit out of wine, literally. We're gluten-free and vegetarian. We also practice ingredient transparency by putting all of our ingredients on the back of the bottle. I know you might be giggling, but not all wine is vegetarian, okay? So you might just be drinking fish bladder, but that's none of my business. Here's the fun part. As your Only Mom sponsor, I'm here to hook you up with 20% off your next order. Just head over to momjuicewine.com and use promo code OnlyMoms to go and treat yourself. You deserve it.
And you shouldn't have to. I casually dropped that into conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm medicated, you know? And I just because I want to normalize it. And I know it sounds a little crazy sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, you know, that was a really hard time, but the medication really helped.
You want to make it normal.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of people think that there might be something wrong with taking medication. And I'm like, really, we should all be embracing scientific discoveries and different ways that we can help be the best versions of ourselves. And in turn, we'll be better partners, we'll be better mothers, we'll just be able to show up for ourselves. And so I highly recommend it. I mean, get the help you need.
Yeah. And I think that it's interesting because not everyone's postpartum journey is the same, right? Mine, I was happy as a clam until I stopped breastfeeding. And so actually my milk supply dropped around 10 and a half months. And that extreme drop from me producing so much milk to maybe like 2 ounces, 3 ounces a day, it really made me crazy. I experienced rage. I mean, there was one time where I got into just a regular like bickering with my husband. It wasn't even anything crazy, but he's holding the baby and we're kind of bickering back and forth. And I started walking towards him aggressively. I wanted to like muff his face. And I stopped myself. I know. No, I was like, oh my God. And I had to tell him later, I was like, I want you to know that I almost put my hands on you. Like, I really was going to like muff him in the face. If he wasn't holding the baby, I would have done it, which is not okay. I do not promote this. Right. But then I had to be vocal about it because I'm like, I need to tell him this because what if I do this actually?
And the fact that you could recognize that in yourself. And so, I mean, that's always the first step, right? Is being like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Something's going on. Right. Mm-hmm. And then taking it a step towards doing something differently.
Yeah. This is a good segue into just in general the fourth trimester. How long would you say the fourth trimester lasts?
So, I mean, I know that the term refers to the first 3 months after childbirth, but really the fourth trimester lasts at least a year.
Yeah, 3 months. You've got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just now in something that is not a moo-moo pajama at 3 months.
I mean, your hair doesn't even really start falling out until the 3 to 6 month mark. And by then, you're technically supposed to be out of the fourth trimester. And it's just not true. It really does last the entire first year.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. A full year. Okay, so let's dive into a bit of the pricing. Right? You've got this amazing company. And when I surveyed my audience, and we'll go into later all of I want to end on this positive, like everything they get with the retreat. But tell us first, what does it cost to come and admit yourself to your retreat for, you guys had a minimum of 3 days. Is that the recommended time? Let's rock into it.
Yeah. So we actually have different pricing depending on how long you stay. And so we have a minimum stay requirement of 3 nights. And that's really because, I mean, you mentioned our physician developed postpartum care planning. Every single parenting team, and that's what we call them, the mom and the partner, we actually give them a customized care plan. And it takes them through these 3 really important cornerstones, basically these milestones that we want them to meet before they go home and transition home, or they might be coming to us after having spent some time at home. But there's a goal to be reached when you're staying with us. And we just didn't feel like you could do that if you're staying for fewer than 3 nights. And so the minimum length of time that you can stay is 3 nights, and that is $880 a night. And what that equates to is around $36 an hour for 24/7 support, this beautiful boutique hotel suite that's over 500 square feet, supplies, 3 meals for mothers, snacks, master classes, the camaraderie, just like all of the things, all of the learning and access to lactation and mental health and a ton of other services, massages, acupuncture, all of that is around $36 an hour if you're staying for just 3 nights. Now, if you're staying 5 nights, then the price drops to $850. So 5, 6 nights, it's $850. And then 7 to 9 nights is $835. And then the price continues to decrease up to around 30 nights. And we did recently have a parenting team stay with us for their first 30 nights after baby. And I really think they are thriving. And so
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. So, for those of you who are looking at investing in postpartum care, because I feel like, we went through a time where a night nurse was like, oh my God, a night nurse. And now a lot of people do night nurses. My night nurse was, I believe, around that same price. Granted, she was a registered nurse. You can get a doula, you can get something a little cheaper, but you're only getting them for the duration of the night, and it's around the same hourly price as the 3-night stay at Sanu. So for people that when you break it down like that, I really like that you did the hourly, because it makes a difference in how you're comparing things. So no, that's great. I was gonna ask the longest stay, and 30 days sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, we were really able to see the baby grow from, because when babies are first born, I think a lot of single people or just people who are not parents yet, your baby looks like a little raisin.
Yes.
And they're like this little gremlin, like really skinny and a little raisin. And we were able to see this baby grow and gain weight. And by the end of his first month, he was this chubby little baby, like loud and rambunctious and able to hold his head up. I mean, he was just the cutest. And so for me, that's really gratifying. And I will tell you that sometimes we do have parents who are like, oh, can I actually extend my stay? Which is like music to my ears as a business person. But honestly, I'm looking for parenting teams to say, okay, I'm ready to go home now, because they feel ready, right? We have done our job. If you're like, okay, this is great, and now I'm ready to go home. And I'm like, yes.
That makes sense. I love that. I love that so much. And I love hearing that from you as a CEO, because, your model is so different. You do have to, in order to keep the customers coming, you're going to get a lot of word of mouth. You have to lead with your heart. And that's the right attitude. Like, of course, you want them to stay longer naturally as a business owner, but leading with your heart and building something that is really special, that's what it takes. So that's awesome. What is the length of time? Do people come immediately after giving birth? So it's like straight from the hospital and checking in?
So most parents will come straight from the hospital. We do have to adjust a lot of check-in dates because of that, because babies will come when they want to come. And, we do our very best to accommodate babies' dates. And so sometimes that means we have to play around with our staffing and the suite availability. But I don't think we've gotten more than like 24 to 48 hours beyond someone's desired check-in date if we had to adjust.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, most people stay for about a week, 5 to 7 nights. And I think we can get you through the program. Now, if you need extra relaxation, if you really want to get your rest, if you really want to get the learning, you can stay for longer, and it's really up to you. And I've seen people who've had support at home that are like, oh, my mom's coming for 2 weeks. And so they'll come on like their third week. I always say definitely stagger the support. Yeah. Like you always need support. So it's like, if you have somebody at home, don't come to us. Use their love and support, and then come to us afterwards, or schedule your mom or your sister or whoever to come after you see us. But you can come at any point during your first 12 weeks.
I think this is a fair conversation to have about help at home. So I had a lot of people coming into my home, grandparents and whatnot. And if you are a visitor in someone's home, and I love, because what you focus on, I mean, as far as like, Julia, what you focus on is the care for the mother, right? And what a lot of people that are coming into your home to help you do is care for the baby. They want to hold your baby. And, there are things like, I would make a preset chore list before you go into labor, like even more than my birthing strategy. Like make a chore list or a meal list, whatever that is, and hang them both on the refrigerator. And if someone wants to come and visit you, like that is the least they can do is knock one of those things off of the list, because you're gonna get a different experience going and hanging out with Julie and her team than you are with your, and of course everyone's family is different, but it's so hard to come as a guest or a grandma and not want to hold the baby all day, right?
Right. And
that's not what we need.
That is actually helpful later, once the child is a little bit older and you can't eat your own meal, you have to,
Yep.
So like when the baby is older, please, come help with the baby. But in those early days, and you still have this yearning to bond with your child, the help really isn't to hold the baby or do whatever for the baby. The help is make a meal for mom, do her laundry, vacuum up her floor, take her dog for a walk, or volunteer to take the dog for a week. Bring feed meals by. Yes. So,
okay, talk to me about the team you get when you check into Sanu, because, I gave the night nurse reference. That's for one human being. Granted, she was one registered nurse, but it's like a small part of not a small part of the day. If you're actually getting to sleep, it's a big part of your day. But what is your team made up of?
Yes. So our head of care, our director of operations, she is also an RN with mother-baby experience, NICU experience. She is the one who really helps put together the personalized care plans. So she is on your team. Our operations manager, she has a background in occupational therapy. She is on your team. We have a rotating cadre of nurses and different professionals in childcare and mother care. A lot of them have bachelors in nursing, or are nurses in hospitals, or are certified doulas, or they're specialists in lactation. So you're going to be seen by people who have a health and wellness background. But because we're 24/7, we do create a team that is for you, the parents. So that's just to say we can't have one doula who's assigned to you around the clock, because that person also needs to sleep. So you do have a rotating team, as well as a team that you may never see. We have an admin who makes sure that all the appointments that you request, your massage, your postpartum massage gets scheduled, that your acupuncture gets scheduled. So you literally have an entire team working around the clock to look after you, the parenting team, as well as your child. We have a round the clock nursery. And so if you want to send your child there during the day or overnight, you can do so knowing that we have a camera enabled nursery that is staffed around the clock. We follow hospital protocols in there. It's meticulously cleaned. We follow infection prevention policies. We really take the best of care.
Oh my gosh, I love that. One note I want to give you, I did just interview the CMO of SNU, and their one of their goals is getting into the hospitals, right? And it does help, especially because the hospitals are so understaffed. I believe having the SNU was the amount of manpower of 2 nurses. So it might be something for you guys to look into in your nursery. But
we would love it. I've used the SNU for my second, and we really love it. We love everything that Dr. Karp does, and I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, same. Okay, I love the team. You mentioned acupuncture, massages. They get nutritious meals, mother and father. Yes. Okay.
So the cost of a stay per night covers the mother's meals, but partner does get breakfast at the hotel. It's a beautiful buffet breakfast. And if he wants to stay for lunch and dinner, and we highly encourage it because we really want partners to stay as well, they basically order off of the same menu, and it's like at cost. So it's like, this $18 salmon dish or what have you. They're just, ordering off of our menu.
Okay, great. Okay, so for the people that aren't ready to make this financial commitment, what are the 2 things that you think postpartum would be the most important to invest in, to have at home?
Yeah. I would say a place for you to properly shift with your partner. So I'm going to assume, and this is not the case for everyone, that you have a co-parent or a partner or somebody there with you, and you cannot stay up 24/7. And so what that means is somebody at some point you're going to be sleeping and somebody else is going to be watching your child. And so what that means for you to have a really good restful sleep at that time is that you have to be sleeping in a place that is separate from the baby. You shouldn't have the monitor, notch the temperature down a couple of degrees, put on an eye mask, put on, earplugs, and just have a really good sleep for as long as you can. And I know that's hard because you may be getting up to pump or to feed, but when you're sleeping, try to get the most restful sleep, and it has to be in a different space as your baby. It has to be in a different space than the monitor. And so just invest in a place for you to rest, or it could be the on shift parent to rest while they're watching the baby and the baby sleeping, especially if it's in the middle of the night. It needs to be a separate space.
Did you do that with your first two?
Not with my first, and that was a huge mistake, but I did with my second. And one of the really popular things that we do with their parenting teams at the retreat is talking to them about proper strategies for overnight shifting. And this is what I tell all of them, is that if you are going to be the resting partner, you have to really rest and be away from your baby.
Yeah. That is so true, because we still are not good about that. We did something really cool, but I see in this conversation why I've been so sleep deprived. We built on a nursery on our master suite, which is amazing now that she's a toddler and sleeping through the night. And when I need to get ready, right, like everything's baby proof and we're just back there having so much fun. But man, that first year, it is supposed to be your restful place, but it's also the baby's place, right? She's only across the bathroom and you can hear her when she wakes up. And so that's the issue that we were having, is that the resting parent is not truly resting.
Exactly.
Very important.
Yeah. And I would also recommend investing in, if you can, like a meal delivery service, whether that be, Mighty Meals or something else. I love Mighty Meals because if you go up on their website, they give you like all the macros, and you know that you're getting the amount of calories that you need to really support your feeding goals if they happen to be breastfeeding. Now, if you're not, then knowing the nutritious value of your meals is great for other reasons. But I would invest in a meal delivery service just to take that off of your plate. And to know that something is coming and it's going to be good and wholesome and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, we're going to link Mighty Meals because I do think, even from a gifting perspective, people do meal trains, right? And I felt like, me being so busy, it's not that I don't want to buy my friend a meal, but one, I don't know their diet restrictions. Like if they're not listed, I'm still a little bit weird about that. If they're breastfeeding, are they doing dairy? What is happening? And what does their spouse like? It was a lot. And so I feel like we should definitely link Mighty Meals and get more comfortable as women, right? Like instead of like, let's make it easier, even a laundry subscription for 3 months. I was like, what a great gift. So something like that it's like for the home, for the house, like take something off their plate type of gift, is a great idea.
A dog walker, right?
Yes, a dog walker. That is a really good one. So Julia, one thing that we cheers to earlier is how quickly you went back to work, and I applaud you, but I know like it took a toll on your mental health. Talk to me about motherhood penalty as it pertains to the workforce.
Oh my gosh.
What is it?
Yeah. So this is definitely something that we don't talk about enough. And basically the motherhood penalty says that a woman's pay decreases once they become mothers. And alternatively for men, fathers experience a bonus. They get more advantages at work in terms of pay, in terms of perceived competence. And, I think there was a large scale study done that looked at the amount of money that was being made, when mothers compared to fathers, and working mothers versus childless father or childless men. And there is truly a measurable difference between the level of compensation between women and men at that juncture of their lives.
I don't know how we fix it, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, we're both entrepreneurs, we're both mothers. We want to fix this problem. What I will say is that if you're building a company from the inside out for women, which is something that we strive to do over here at Mom Juice, we can put great policies into place, but then the state, like, we have to have so much money. We have to be doing so well as a company to offer what we truly want to offer. And, the state of Colorado, where we're headquartered, if we hire someone out of Colorado, they help with the compensation if they go on maternity or paternity leave. But North Carolina does not. And so it's like, oh my gosh, right? Like it makes it in the United States, it is so difficult to try to build things from the inside out to then eventually create change in this conversation, right? Like even from that level. And then we talk about like, okay, well, how do women, they have to step out to give birth. How do they still make sure that their value is obtained at work while they're not there?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the unfairness of all of this until we're blue in the face. But really, I think what really is effective is talking about the dollars and cents. So I'm talking about, the $14.2 billion cost to families when the mothers are not cared for properly. There are these outsized dollar impacts to whole families, to children, $2.9 billion in maternal health expenses, $4.7 billion in lost productivity and unemployment. I mean, we're talking about some serious moolah and productivity. And so it is really in the best interest of the entire country, of all the states, of all the municipalities, to really support families by supporting mothers. And, fine, it's great to give working dads the benefit of the doubt, a pay raise or whatever it is that you can do. But the ones who need it are the mothers. That's where it's going to make a difference.
Yeah. And you want to know what, like, you're so right about that, because my husband was, I don't know if he was promoted or he got a bonus, whatever it was, some financial compensation. Yay, he's winning, right? And as like his wife right now, I'm like, whoo, for the family, that was great. But where I was at mentally postpartum, when he comes home and he's like, and mind you, where I was stressing that my business partners weren't getting enough for me. They weren't, or are they not going to see the value in me when I come back? Like, is my position going to be there any longer? And the anxiety from that takes away from your experience with your baby. And then my husband comes home and he's like, I just got promoted, great. And I'm like, you're such a dick. Like, I should be happy for you right now, but I am really struggling and you're winning every day. Like nothing has changed for you is almost what I felt like. He didn't have to take work off. They offer it, which I'm glad his company offers it, but he chose like 1 week and now he's like back in action.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate too. The fact that, partners, that the dads can't feel that they can take the requisite time off to really bond with their children and their wives. So it's not just about bonding with your new baby, but now you need to bond with your partner. You're the mother. This is a totally different dynamic. And a week doesn't cut it. It doesn't happen in a week.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make my husband actually sound like a dick. Like he didn't take work off because truly in his mind, he didn't feel that where the company was with the recession and whatnot, he could. He didn't feel like there was someone there to make those decisions or do the things that needed to be done without it going to hell.
Right. And, it is not, and I'm not here trying to villainize businesses, right? I'm a business owner. And like you mentioned, you have to be doing so well to be able to really comfortably offer certain benefits. And I will tell you that as a business owner that I struggle with that all the time. And I'm not here to villainize businesses, but I really think it's going to take legislation, regulation to really help parents when they need it the most.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And with your political background, I want to bring up a topic that I was so curious about, a battle that if you were going to go fight it. But, I was so surprised to read that suicide is the highest, reason for death in mothers postpartum for the first year. It is postpartum maternal care is not taken seriously enough in the United States. And do you think that you'll go up and attempt to get the insurance companies to cover a portion of this cost so more mothers could enter into your wonderful company in the retreat for some postpartum care?
I mean, I would love to. I actually spoke with another operator, a woman who's starting a postnatal retreat elsewhere. And I said, we need to start an industry association, like a lobbying group. I mean, we're not the lobbyists, but we can, everybody chip in so that we can get a lobbyist. And they need to advocate for our collective needs. And the problem is insurance companies, some of them will say specifically that they do not cover postpartum care stays, and that if there is any element of leisure or luxury, it is completely off the table. And the problem is, I lose sleep over this all the time. Our postnatal retreats are not priced the way that they are because we want to make a huge profit. It's a problem of scale. It's a problem of the cost of labor and the cost of supplies and all the things that we're offering, that there is no way without insurance support, without federal government support, that we can start to offer these things at a lower cost. And so, we need to do whatever we can to ensure that we're getting the support that we need to bring more mothers here, to make this more accessible. And, I think fighting with insurance companies, that's such a hard battle. The state senator for whom I used to work, she was a pro at this. She dedicated so much of her career to helping families get telehealth, to fighting surprise billing. And she had so much experience working with insurance companies, but they are not an easy go. And so this is a long, hard fight. And I think what it's going to take is a lot of outcry from the general public as well as operators. And they may not all be postnatal retreats, but, lactation consultants and doulas and all of us kind of getting together and starting an industry association and really advocating for our collective rights and helping families. This is not just for businesses. This is for families.
Right. No, I mean, I agree with you 100%. And I actually love your idea of doing that. So, Julia, if you put something together, let me know. I'm ready to join. I'm not going to be the lobbyist, but I'm here to support.
I think there's a lot of interest around it. So I would love to see something come together and, just wait.
I know, right? You could do it. You're the person for it. Okay, so Julia, it was lovely having you today. I have been waiting for this conversation for a long time. Can you let our listeners know where to find you and Sanu? And we, of course, will link everything in the show notes, but that's how we'll end out today.
Yes. Please find us online, sanupostpartum.com, and also on Instagram, Sanu Postpartum Care. Those are really the best ways. Call us, email us. We will get back to you. Reach out in any way that you can. We would love to be a resource for you wherever you are in the country, even if you decide not to stay with us, just, reach out and stay in touch.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was super fun.